Hello all you amazing people out there. My name is Huck Stewart and I'm an educator and a learning designer. In my last video of this series, I went over what a learning designer does and doesn't do. It was pretty general, and so today I'd like to go into a little more detail about what it is to be a learning designer, what it's like to work with a learning designer, what the process may be like if you work with a learning designer, and even how long it might take when you're working with a learning designer. So grab your favorite snack and let's jump into it today. Alright, so the first thing I want to discuss with you guys is why you would want to even consider working with a learning designer. So you're already an expert in your field, and now it comes time for you to either train your employees to be able to do something or teach your students to be able to pass something or accomplish something. And the chances are that a lot of you, when you consider online learning, have a really bad taste in your mouth. You think about maybe your experiences with online learning and how they weren't very good, and so you assume that online learning just isn't effective for most students. The reality is that most online learning experiences have not been effectively designed, and this is the number one reason why you'd want to work with a learning designer. The chances of your students or your employees having a successful experience as learners is going to increase dramatically if you design your experience with a learning designer. There are going to be a small handful of you out there listening who have the subject matter experience as well as the learning design, learning theory, and online application experience. And for those people, they may say, well, Huck, I don't think I need to work with a learning designer. And that may be true mostly, but we can often give quick reviews and provide consultation feedback for those teachers who have already designed their own online courses. But for the vast majority of you out there, you may feel very confident in your subject or in your field of study, and you may even start feeling more comfortable about teaching that to people in a face-to-face traditional setting. But when it comes time to teaching online, you're going to feel very outside of your comfort zone when it comes to thinking about teaching, developing, and designing online learning experiences. That's where people like me come in. I have a master's degree in instructional technology and design. As a learning designer, we've been trained on learning theories, best practices, technology applications. Then we combine all of those together and join you in an effort to create the best class possible. I kind of like to think of it as two superheroes joining forces. You have the teaching expertise and the subject expertise. I have teaching expertise and online learning theory expertise. We join forces to create the best student learning experience possible. And together we will save the world. Here's the biggest trap I see educators fall into. When they're asked to teach online and they don't work with a learning designer, what I typically see is they'll take their chapters, give those as assignments in an online class, and then they'll take the PowerPoint presentations and give those as an assignment for an online class. And then they'll often require their students to post something in a discussion, maybe about what they read that week. And then they'll have a midterm that's about 50 questions, multiple choice. And then they'll have a final that's about 100 questions, multiple choice. And that's the course. And students are dropping out and not having good experiences, and they're not learning. And people come to me and say, well, online learning just doesn't work. And I'm here to tell you that that isn't online learning. That's just dumping a bunch of content onto a web page and hoping that some of it sticks. You certainly wouldn't teach that way in a traditional class, would you? Welcome to class, everybody. It's good to see you all. I hope you had a great weekend. All right, today's lesson, go ahead and open up your textbooks. Let's read chapter 2 and 3 quietly. When you're done, go ahead and look at my PowerPoint presentation provided by the Textbook Publishing Company. We'll have a test next Monday. Have a great day. Bye. We help you identify some of those common flaws and mistakes that come with transitioning from traditional teaching to online teaching. We help you identify best practices for design methods, instructional methods, feedback, project development, interactive technology development, and we help you use all of that technology so that your students can have the highest impact of success and learning possible. So in this next section, we're going to cover what it might be like to work with a learning designer, what the process is going to be like, and maybe how long it would take to get through that process. And in all of this, I want to make sure it's clear that I'm only speaking for myself. This is my learning design process. I've learned a lot of things from other learning designers along the way, and I'm constantly improving my system. So I kind of talked about this in my last video, but the biggest assumption that teachers make when they start working with me is that they assume I'm going to take all of their ideas and content that they traditionally just use in their face-to-face classroom and just dump it onto a Canvas course and then just make it look pretty. They kind of think of me more of like this visual designer, rather than a learning designer. And then we dive into the project, and many teachers are very surprised to find out how in depth we go into learning design. We talk about learning theories, we do course analysis, we do learning outcome analysis. And so the process when you're working with a learning designer is going to be a lot of discussion. It's going to be a lot of back and forth and bouncing ideas off of each other and playing around with technology and discussing learning theories and sharing learning articles with each other so that we can make the best choices for our students. So I was trained as a learning designer to follow the Understanding by Design, UBD theory or model. Some people call it the backwards design model. We call it backwards design because it focuses less on content coverage and more on the outcomes. We stay backwards because we don't talk about the very first things we're going to do to teach the students. We talk about the very final product that we want the students to get to. Think of it as like the target or the goal of the course. At my institution, we call it the learning outcomes. Every course should have learning goals that you need to work toward. Backwards design, we start with the end in mind. So when you sit down with me for the first time and you start saying, okay, Hook, I have this chapter and this textbook that I want them to read, I have this activity that I want them to do, I have this discussion that I want them to talk about, I'll say, oh, hang on a second, let's stop for a moment. What do you want the students to accomplish by the end of your course? What are the most important ideas or concepts or skills that they'll need to walk away with so that you know they were successful? If we start there, then I'll be able to work backwards to the assessments of how we measure it, then to the learning activities and the content. See, backwards design. So I kind of want to show you some of my documents that I use to analyze these courses and to be able to design and develop them. And these are all the things that we do together. If you were working with a learning designer, you'll see SME stands for subject matter expert. That would be the teacher teaching the course, or maybe the person we hired to design the curriculum for the content of the course, even if somebody else might be teaching. And then LD stands for learning designer. That would be me. We talk a lot about those learning outcomes. We do a learning outcome analysis. We even go specific into smaller module learning outcomes and identify goals and learning outcomes for each specific module. We talk a lot about the course structure, how you want the course to flow, and how you want it to fit into a certain time frame. Then we move to the analysis of the assessments. I like to call this the alignment portion, where we align your final assessments to the learning outcomes. A lot of times I've noticed that those don't really align very nicely. They'll have a big major final assessment at the end of the course that doesn't really match what they want the students to be able to accomplish. We do discuss things like visual themes and student navigation and course flow. Then we dive into the learning activities. And again, we make sure that those learning activities are aligned and setting students up for success when it comes time to prepare them for the assessment. We usually develop a prototype module that's just like a single module that kind of shows proof of concept of the way we want to teach our students, and we get a lot of feedback from other learning designers and your other colleagues during this time. Then we develop the whole course. Most teachers are surprised that we don't just dive right in and start just creating pages and letting them dump their content into the pages. Finally, you get a chance to actually pilot the course. You teach it to your first batch of students. We collect feedback from the students and feedback from the teacher that's delivering the content. And then we even meet after that and decide if there's any room for improvement. I've noticed that it typically takes me 3 to 5 weeks meeting with a teacher a couple of times a week for us to be able to just complete the design process. And during that time, I help you come up with great practices on how you're going to deliver the content or demonstrate your experiences to the students. And then we discuss how you're going to measure and give feedback to the students. And we're really pulling away from that coverage of the content model and moving toward that understanding by design model. Now, once that whole process is complete, there are a list of other things that we actually do with you and for you to make this process smooth. Some of them include helping you develop and design grading practices and rubrics. Often we help you develop and design interactive tools and technologies that are built into the course so students can click and interact and get automatic feedback. We help you look at all of your content and make sure it meets the standards of inclusiveness and accessibility. We definitely help you with the visual design as well. We make sure your course looks nice and that it's smooth and easy for navigation for students. We also help you with things like writing instructions and communication with your students and figuring out best ways for you to leave announcements or comment on their discussion posts. We even help you with content creation, like if you wanted to make your own infographics or instructional videos or demonstration videos. And the list can go on and on. We basically help you do and develop whatever you feel like is going to be best for the students. We also help you explore a variety of technologies that may be useful for students. My experience is that even after I've finished a project with teachers, we often revisit it and discuss things together even years later. Teaching is about constant improvement, and so a course is never going to be 100% complete. And that really is it. Again, you might be surprised at how in-depth we go as learning designers, but in the end, it's all about student learning. We are 100% focused on the experience of the learner. I'm so glad you watched this video with me. I hope it was helpful. If you liked it, please consider sharing it with other people who may benefit from seeing this video. I'm always looking for new ideas for making videos. If you have any technology topics or design topics you would like me to create a video about, let me know in the comments. As always, I hope you guys have a great day teaching, and we will see you next time.